Good morning from the National Hardware Show. We thought we'd show you the brand new line of Saber Grills for the premium and specialty market with a cooking demonstration this morning. We're grilling ribeye steaks, one of the best cuts you can get, nice marbling, heavy fat. A boneless, skinless chicken breast, which most people really don't want to eat as a grilled product because it dries out. And some center cut pork loin chops, which is also a difficult product to grill. As you do a cooking demonstration, or as we do our cooking demonstrations, ribeyes are chosen, one, because it's probably one of the most flavorful cuts of meat, but two, its marbling tends to lend to all kinds of flare-up problems. And you'll notice we happen to be cooking on high temperatures above 700 degrees, and there's no fire on the grate anywhere. And that's due really to our patented infrared cooking system. It actually removes the flare-up potential and vents all of the convective air away from the cooking surface and gives you a very moist cut of meat when you're done. Boneless, skinless chicken breast is another really good example. Everybody sort of dreads that idea when you end up at someone's home for a cookout or when you're doing the cooking yourself. Skinless chicken breasts have three real technical problems with them to cook. One is they have virtually no fat with them at all, and very little liquid in them in their natural state. Second is they have a geometry problem. You'll notice that a chicken breast is extremely thick at one end and tapers down to a very narrow end. And that kind of causes some problems when you have to cook the product to food safe, which is about 165 degrees according to the FDA. To get the entire product food safe, especially this very thick end, requires you to turn this very thin end pretty much into shoe leather. And so the typical boneless, skinless chicken breast that you have at your backyard barbecue is probably a little better to retread your shoe or shingle your house with and actually eat. But infrared, because it actually removes the convective air and leaves the moisture content in the product, when we cut the chicken breast that we cook, you'll actually see liquid run from it and juice run from it. And I'll actually give you the opportunity to eat the tail end, which is typically the worst part of the chicken breast, and it will actually also remain pretty juicy. Pork cutlets has to be cooked to a food safe temperature, or you might have some unhappy family members and guests. Also very lean in terms of intermuscular fat content. So you get very little natural juice, tends to also dry out. So excellent demonstration of the benefits of cooking with an infrared grill. And also some pretty good eats. The real proof, the test of any product and a claim of producing juicier, moister food. We'll cut the pork cutlet. You can see it's well done, absolutely food safe, nice sear marking. So it makes a great plate presentation. But the proof is in the cut. If you look at the product that still runs with liquid and juice. So you've got a nice moist piece of pork that will be delicious to serve. No special marinades required, no sauces, no way to re-moisten the meat needed. Straight from your grill to your plate, and a delicious meal for family and friends. Let's take a look at our steaks. Perfect sear marks, nice caramelization on the top, all signs of good high heat cooking. We're getting close to from a tenderness test, probably a nice medium here. So we'll let them cook just a little longer and get that second set of hash marks when we do the flip. And we'll cut and see what a ribeye is like off of a Saber grill. Last flip here, so watch all that nice juice roll down into the grate. Notice that there are no flare-ups in this process. Ribeyes are famous for creating a grate full of fire. And these are probably close to medium well to slightly well. So let's kind of cut and see what we get. Normally, the rule of thumb is that you should let this rest for a little while and let the juices disperse back out through your steak. But infrared doesn't require that in a steak, so we'll just cut and see how that works. Notice the nice clean, simple, easy, tender cut. We've got a steak that definitely comes into the medium to medium well side. But I want you to look particularly at the juice and the liquid that still is inside this steak that hasn't been cooked away in the typical convective cooking process. The other thing that is a staple on the grill is the traditional American hamburger. These happen to be Bubba burgers, and we use those specifically because they have about a 34% fat content, so all kinds of really good flavor, but they also tend to flare up because of that fat content. Who hasn't on a weekend cooked a grill full of burgers and had to spend time with either a water bottle or the lid down, constantly fighting the flare-up? Look at the nice sear mark to the burger, and I'll just scrape that extra grease straight off the top, right down into the cooking grate, and you will see no fire in this process. What you see is smoke and flavor coming up off the cooking grate as it vaporizes any of the drippings, any of the fat drippings that come off the burger. You'll also notice that because we don't cook with convective heat, that the hamburger doesn't typically turn into the hockey puck that everyone is used to, the large patty that goes on and the small patty that comes off. I think we're about ready to take a look at chicken. We talked a little bit about the challenges to cooking a good piece of chicken. So let's take a chicken breast, nicely done, golden brown. And turn it around so you can see the cut. And we'll cut both at the thick part, so you get a nice, moist, juicy chicken breast. You can just see the liquid roll out of it. It remains nice and plump and tender, but the true test of any chicken breast is this little tail end piece that usually ends up as hard as a rock down here. And notice how juicy and moist it remains and tender to cut. So if you happen to like chicken, an infrared grill is exactly what you need to cook with. Let's talk a little bit about, as our hamburgers finish, about the magic and the science of infrared. We showed you inside the grill, the standard 304 stainless high-quality tube burner. Each burner has its own firebox, so you have zonal temperature control. But the magic happens at the cooking surface in this very special patented and engineered cooking grate. We take the heat from the burner and, using a 304 stainless plate, create radiant cooking energy. And this plate is very special. It is peaked at the top and slotted, and the valley to it is solid. Both of those features play a really important role in its cooking performance. You'll notice that the back of the grate is hollow. What happens is this emitter plate lines up perfectly with the cooking grate. And if you look at it from the bottom, any convective heat, any convective air, which is really bad for your food, it's what dries your food out, vents up through the slots at the peak. And that heat is transferred to the inside of the cooking rib and spreads out across it. So it gives you a really nice, really hot, really even cooking surface. And then we vent all of that convective air out of the front and the rear of the grate. So the piece of protein that sits up here, whether it's a steak or a hamburger, a piece of chicken, or a sausage, never really sees hot convective air. So you don't have that drying effect that goes on. It sees pure, radiant energy to cook with. That's what locks the juice and the flavor into your product. The other magic, and this might be a little more difficult to see, is that solid valley. Notice that you can't see through the cooking grate. And the reason for that is, as grease drains down into that valley, it's a low oxygen area. And what happens is that it becomes impossible for that grease to burn. It's too rich a mixture. So that because the radiant plate is superheated, you watch it vaporize the grease. And that's a really interesting claim, but let me show you that it's true, because when you open the grease tray to your grill, notice that it's completely empty. And we've cooked on this unit for 2.5 straight days at the show, and there's no grease present. And that's because it vaporizes off during the cooking process, adding flavor to what you're cooking. Looks like our hamburgers are ready for another flip. So let's watch when that happens. Typically, this is the worst part of cooking a hamburger, is when you actually flip and end up with all that grease falling down onto the burner and creating all those flare-ups, which also turn your hamburger into carbon. You can see the juice that comes to the surface of the hamburger. We'll just flip that straight over, and you can watch it vaporize into smoke and flavor. You'll also notice that we've cooked everything that we've shown in this demonstration lit up, and that is extraordinarily difficult for any typical convective grill. I don't care at what price point or at what dollar value or what the manufacturer is. The vast majority of the product on the market, it is impossible to cook the duration and the type of food that we're cooking lit up. So that's another significant advantage to a Saber infrared grill. I've kind of let our steaks finish all the way to a well done, because there are folks who actually have steak that is well done. And typically at that point, most folks will claim that it is unedible. So why don't we cut and see what we get from a juiciness point of view to a well done steak. Just cut it straight across the center, straight off the grill. And still notice that there is plenty of moisture and liquid inside that product. So even as a well done steak, you still get lots of flavor, lots of moisture, and basically good eats. Our hamburgers are probably about ready for another flip, so let's flip some more. And I think we've probably got one that's done here. So why don't we take a look and see what the hamburger looks like. Notice it maintains much of its original size. One simple cut down the center. And look at all the liquid that's still left in that burger. Who wouldn't want a nice big piece of cheddar cheese or pepper jack cheese, a good bakery bun, some lettuce and tomato? I appreciate you joining me for a cooking demonstration. I happen to love to show off our product, and I also happen to love to eat the food that comes off.